Oh yeah, I've taken a trip up to the oxygen farm. As you know, we've got quite a lot of work going on up here as we take out the commercial spruce and put in a much more environmentally friendly emulation of a Caledonian woodland forest of yore. And I'm here with Colin. So I'm going to just turn the camera around. We're socially distanced, as you can tell. So I've got loads of questions from yourselves about the oxygen farm, which I'm going to ask Colin now. So Colin, first of all, please introduce yourself. We've just had a couple of hours walking around. So tell the team who you are.
Colin McBrain's my name, and I own with my wife a company called Woodland Consulting, which, as the name suggests, we advise woodland owners how to look after their trees and then project manage where work is needed on the ground, essentially.
Fabulous. So give us a kind of update of, I mean, we've been working together and you've been working with my dad for quite a while. Where are we at now? And how have we got to where we are now?
Okay, the first thing we had to do was to compile a forest plan, which is like a 20-year plan, setting out our objectives, what we want to do during that period, consulting with neighbours and all the other stakeholders like Scottish Natural Heritage, local council, etc. That was all approved back in early December. Since then, we've started enacting the plan, which is felling around 20 hectares this year, which will produce around 9 to 10,000 tonnes of timber. Most of it going for construction, and most of it going to a sawmill in Northumberland. The rest is all biomass and chipwood, which will be used in biomass plants to create chipwood, as the name suggests, pulp, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And we're well on. We're about a third of the way through that program, and we hope to finish it by the end of March. Ongoing with that, we've had to improve the access for 45-ton timber lorries. So there's been work to excavate rock from the quarry and to extend the road network a little bit, and to make sure it can withstand that amount of punishment from heavy lorries. We're also taking out huge areas of scrub, gorse and broom and rhododendron, which is all over the place, and just to create room for the replanting, which will be happening in spring 22, maybe some in the autumn this year.
Fabulous. So I've been round it today and had a look, and there's certainly a big change. So just to manage expectation, take some pictures which I'll share around with this video as well, to show the logging lorries, big piles of logs and all of this kind of stuff. Obviously we were having a chat about FSC, and we are very keen as a business and have to be on both data integrity and audit trails and GDPR compliance and FSC and PEFC, as we know we've been through that. Can you just tell us the audit trail that you have from starting from the origin of this, you know, where you get a tree, how it goes through into what we would say as the start point of our process when it's being processed into, say, wood or, you know, for pulp and what have you. So how does it go from a tree? What's the process?
You mean a mature tree?
A mature tree that's
Right.
been cut down.
Okay, so the harvester cuts the trees down and into different categories for the market. It's extracted by a forwarder to the side of the road, and the haulier then takes it to market. At each stage, everything is documented. So the harvester has a computer on board that will itemize all the products, work out the cubic meters, lengths of timber, etc., etc. The timber haulier obviously creates a weight ticket that's then authenticated by the sawmill where it goes to, and that will of course identify the source, where it's come from, what it's been cut into. I will then get weight tickets from the contractor who's buying the timber standing, and from that I will create invoices on Simon's behalf to send out for payment.
Fabulous. And so when you said we're using one person for all of that, and because it makes, well, from your point of view, tell us why one integrated contractor kind of thing.
Okay, if there's one integrated contractor running the whole thing, then there's only one point of contact, which is really important. If you had different contractors dealing with different aspects, then they'd each blame each other if something went wrong. But one of the main things is that he is essentially buying the timber standing. So he offers a price. In this case, we're getting £53 a tonne for the saw logs. Within that price is included the cost of felling, extraction, timber haulage, and also a degree of marketing, because at the end of the day, he's financially responsible for that. So if, for instance, he sells some timber to a sawmill who then goes bust, he will be carrying the can for that. If we did all this ourselves in-house and that happened, then Simon would lose all the money.
Yeah.
You can be insured for trade indemnity, but the premiums are exorbitant and
Yeah.
it's simply not worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was interesting having a chat about the cost of wood, or the price of wood at the moment, because we're not seeing that in paper, but here for construction in particular, it's a really good time to be selling wood. And they're taking it down to 16 centimetres, did you say? 16 centimetres, which is obviously not very big, whereas before they'd be much more picky about it. So everything is that we're harvesting is going to be used and used well.
Remember, that's just for the saw logs. The chipwood goes down to 7 centimetres.
Right, wow.
Very small. So the
Amazing.
recovery is very high. And then the brash, of course, is also being sold.
Yes, yeah, I've got some good
So-
pictures of brash,
Yeah.
big brash. And when are we starting replanting, did you say? Next spring, 2022?
We could look at doing some in the autumn,
Right.
but most of it probably next spring.
Okay. And we've been talking a lot about ponds. Ponds are really good, obviously, for biodiversity and aesthetically as well. And Colin is a big fan of ponds, aren't you, Colin?
I am indeed.
And how many are we going to have, you reckon?
Between 20 and 30 quite easily.
20 and 30 ponds. And he had another fantastic idea. What we're going to do between the ponds?
The paths, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. So we can have a sort of meandering mosaic of paths with a nice natural profile going in between the ponds, maybe create little picnic sites, etc., rather than the current setup of paths, which is basically just a grid and is rather boring, and sometimes you don't get many views either.
Yeah.
So I think it will be a lot more interesting.
Absolutely. And we met somebody who lives here on our walk. Not only did we find out there used to be a panther here, a panther, literally, and I swear on them, well, her mother was with her, on her mother's life, that there was a panther here, and I got pictures somewhere. But reassuringly, I think that will have shuffled off its mortal coil by now, but this was some years ago. But they were very excited by, what Colin was telling them about how it was going to be developed, and really friendly people, really nice for people to bump into on there. So when would you imagine the initial phase to finish, where people can start, the heavy gear gone, so we can start having, perhaps over the far side, like we had a walk, and you say that would be a nice area to start. Yeah. When do you think that first stage will have finished, so we can go?
Okay, well, the first stage of felling is going to be done by the end of March, and then there'll be no more timber operations until probably this time next year when we do the thinning. And then in 5, 6, 7 years' time, we've got the second phase of felling to take out basically the rest that's been left standing at the moment. But once this first phase of felling is finished, we can then carry on clearing all the scrub and putting in some of the other infrastructure like the ponds, the ditches, and maybe starting to put in paths then, because once the felling's done, we'll have a much better appreciation of the lie of the land. Yeah. So we could conceivably do some path construction over the summer once we've done the ponds. And
of course, which I would love to say it was part of the grandiose plan of buying this place in the first place, we have got an amazingly useful thing called a quarry, which I nearly got run over by a very big lorry driven by a man called Ben this morning, who was making roadways. So we've got some on site. We've got the ideal substrate to make paths and roads and all of that kind of stuff. So that's been fabulous. And we were just talking briefly about the second eco lodge and getting that roadway or a pathway and identify the location, so it's far enough away from here so it wouldn't adversely affect in any way, but obviously having a facility to be able to drive to it. So we've got that on the road map as well, along with the kind of ponds. And that was about it from a questioning point of view. Is there anything else that you want to say, Colin, about this?
The wildflower meadows is something we haven't touched on.
Oh, that's true.
We,
Yeah.
and there's also the prospect of maybe round the ponds planting irises
Yeah.
and all sorts of aquatic plants
Yes.
that would be of interest.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think, well, the other thing to stress maybe is we talk about replanting,
Yes.
but you should maybe stress that the replanting is only meant to be about 40%, and we're hoping to get natural generation of other
yeah.
species like birch, particularly Scots pine. So we'll end up with a nice natural mix.
Yeah.
And it also means we don't have to then do deer fencing,
Yes.
because natural generation tends to get away without deer. And the planted trees will be in protective tubes, which is unfortunate because they are plastic, but we will make provision to take them off and recycle them within a few years once the trees are up and running.
Because we've seen over there's some that have been there for
Yes,
you
a long
know
time.
a ludicrous amount of time.
Yeah.
So we're going to take those out as well, so that we're as plastic free as we can do in there.
Absolutely.
Anyway, it's good to have an update. Thank you, Colin, for all your hard work.
You're welcome.
And I've got a little something for him to say. Thank you for all your hard work so far. Appropriately encased in wood. A little thank you for all the hard work on behalf of Webmart that you're
Thank
doing.
you so
here.
much. Thanks, Simon.
See you all soon.